I'm Emily, a 35-year-old full-time homemaker. Just a few days ago, I welcomed my newborn twins, John and Sarah, into the world. It was a long, 2-day journey from the first signs of labor to their arrival. But the moment I held them in my arms, all my exhaustion was replaced with pure joy as I heard their healthy cries. The original plan was to go back home with the babies. However, about a month before their birth, my mother had surgery and was still in recovery. Although my parents were eagerly waiting for us and my mom insisted we should come home with the babies despite her health, we decided it was more important to focus on her recovery and support her from a distance. So, my husband and I chose to handle this new chapter of our lives together. But instead of the happiness we expected while caring for our newborns, an unexpected difficulty arose. This is the story of the emotional stress and harassment I faced during that time. On the third morning after we brought the twins home, the apartment's intercom rang suddenly. I wondered who would visit so early. Peeking through the peephole, I saw my mother-in-law standing outside. I was surprised and confused by her sudden visit, but I quickly opened the door. She immediately pushed it open with force, startling the babies. John woke up first, then Sarah. Both of them started crying from the sudden noise. After a sleepless night of calming them, it was disheartening to see their short moment of peace disturbed. She had come by taxi, and I didn't feel right asking her to leave. So, I went to the kitchen to prepare some tea and snacks for her. "Oh my, what a disaster," she said, looking around the apartment. "I can't believe my son is living in this mess." "Emily, you haven't been skipping your chores just because you had babies, have you?" She walked around inspecting for dust, dragging her finger along the windowsills like a strict character in a drama. "I'm sorry," I said. "They cried so much last night that I barely slept. I'll tidy up once they calm down." I continued trying to comfort the crying twins. My mother-in-law brushed my hand away, picked up the babies, and said, "I'll take care of them." Sleepless nights are no excuse. If you want to be a good wife, start cleaning the house now. Even though I was worn out, she insisted I start the housework immediately. I tried to explain how exhausted I was, but she only focused on the twins and ignored how I felt. Reluctantly, I made some formula for the babies and handed it to her. But instead of helping, she scolded me. "Formula? A real mother would breastfeed. What kind of careless parent are you?" Her words hit me hard, touching my biggest insecurity. Though I almost broke down in tears, I stayed calm and followed her instructions, starting to clean the room. Although she claimed she would care for the babies, she barely helped. When their diapers needed changing, she avoided it and called me away from my chores to do it myself. Because of that, I couldn't make much progress with the cleaning. I started to question what her real reason for visiting was. Over the next 2 months, she showed up almost every day. She gave the babies very little care and continued to find faults with everything I did. It was a difficult and stressful time. I wanted to talk to my husband, but he was always exhausted from his demanding job. There was never a proper moment to share my feelings with him. Those 2 months of constant criticism felt like a lifetime. So when she finally said she wouldn't be visiting anymore, I felt relieved. But what she said next shocked me. She held out her hand and asked me to pay her for 2 months of taxi fares and childcare help. I couldn't believe it. "Are you serious?" I asked, unable to hide my frustration. "I never asked for your help. Your presence here has been more of a burden than support. Please don't come back." With those words, I calmly asked her to leave. I packed up her things and, without wasting time, I took my twins and returned to my childhood home. I felt guilty for adding to my own mother's responsibilities, but I knew I couldn't find peace in that environment anymore. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law quickly began complaining to my father-in-law and my husband. She acted like the victim and claimed that I had treated her poorly despite her help. When my husband came home and found us gone, he was shocked. After I told him everything, the color drained from his face. Without saying a word, he rushed off to confront his parents. The following day, my father-in-law, who had only heard my mother-in-law's side of the story, was visibly shaken when my husband told him the full truth. "Oh dear, what have you done?" he asked, his usual calm demeanor replaced by anger directed at my mother-in-law. It was rare for him to lose his temper, and even my husband had never seen him like that before. My husband stood in silence, while my mother-in-law looked startled. "Why are you so upset? Isn't she the one at fault?" she argued. "I was only trying to help her with the babies, even paying for my own taxi rides. Why am I the one being blamed?" She insisted that her intentions were good and denied doing anything wrong. "You still don't understand, do you? Do you even know who Emily's grandfather is?" My father-in-law interrupted, his voice trembling with fury. He fixed his sharp gaze on her, eyes burning with intensity. "That stern-looking older man from the wedding? I remember you being quite respectful toward him, but what does that matter?" she scoffed. "Are you really scared of him? He's the chairman of my company," my father-in-law revealed. My mother-in-law's reaction was an unintentional gasp. "What?" As it turns out, my grandfather holds a powerful position as the chairman of a major corporation. Our wedding had been a grand celebration, attended by several CEOs of well-known companies. Though my grandfather is known for his serious, strict personality in the professional world, he's always been warm and affectionate with me. He would spoil me with gifts or take me out for fine meals whenever we met. After my wedding, Grandma told me he was so moved that he even cried, a rare sight from someone usually so reserved. Knowing how much my grandfather cared for me, there's no way he would stay silent if he ever found out how my mother-in-law had treated me. Even just the idea of his reaction would normally be enough to make someone think twice. But my father-in-law had another reason for not telling him. He was about to be promoted to a managerial role, a position that came with a significant salary increase. He needed to stay focused and avoid drawing attention to any personal problems. But instead of thinking carefully, he allowed this mess to happen. "What were you thinking?" he scolded her. At that moment, it became clear that he was more concerned with his career than with me or the well-being of the twins. My husband, who already knew his father's priorities, looked visibly hurt. "I've had enough," he said. "I'm deeply disappointed in my dad's selfishness and shocked by my mom's behavior toward my wife. Please stay out of our lives." His rejection hit my mother-in-law hard. With surprising emotion, she lunged toward him. "Don't be ridiculous. You're the heir of this family. I won't let you run away from your responsibilities. I'm going to talk to Emily and set her straight. She's our daughter-in-law, and she needs to manage the house properly." Hearing this, my father-in-law turned to her. "You're not seriously thinking of barging into Emily's parents' house, are you? Don't be reckless. You'll ruin my chances of getting promoted. Stay out of it." Hearing those words, my husband quietly left his family home. He walked to my parents' house, explained everything, and apologized for how his family had behaved. His face showed sorrow rather than anger. "I can't believe my parents would act this way. I'm so sorry." My parents didn't say anything in response. Instead, they simply welcomed him and said, "Since you're here, why not join us for dinner?" "Why don't you stay the night, James?" my father suggested. "Our home is close to your apartment. You can easily go back tomorrow to grab a change of clothes." At first, my husband hesitated, unsure about accepting their kindness. But he missed spending quality time with the twins and eventually agreed. It had been a while since we had a peaceful moment as a family. Watching my husband cuddle our crying twins brought comfort to my heart. Later that night, we lay down with the twins nestled between us. I wish moments like this could last forever, I thought to myself. But deep down, I knew my mother-in-law wouldn't stay quiet for long. Still, none of us expected her return so soon. The very next day, while my parents were at work, the doorbell at their house rang repeatedly. I had a bad feeling about it. When I checked the intercom, I was alarmed to see my mother-in-law standing outside, uninvited. "Open up. I know you're in there. Give me back my grandchildren," she shouted. She kept ringing the doorbell and banging on the door, over and over, disturbing the twins until they cried uncontrollably. I felt like I was on the edge of breaking down. Then suddenly, someone else opened the front door. "Finally, you opened the door. Now hand over the twins. Wait, who are you?" To her shock, it wasn't me who answered. It was my grandfather. "How dare you pound on someone's door like that?" That's incredibly rude, he said firmly. Whether or not he was truly angry, his presence alone was enough to silence her. He spoke to my mother-in-law in a stern and commanding voice. She looked completely stunned, unable to respond to the weight of his presence. "Hold on. Are you the chairman my son talked about?" she asked nervously, her voice shaking. My grandfather replied calmly, now I remember. You must be James's mother-in-law. I didn't recognize you. After all, you didn't introduce yourself at the wedding." My mother-in-law had originally opposed our marriage. She felt like she was losing the son she had raised with care, so she refused to attend the wedding at first. Eventually, others persuaded her to come, but she didn't greet any of my relatives. Instead, she stayed in the waiting room, looking upset the entire time. So it made sense that my grandfather hadn't recognized her. Once he realized who she was, his expression hardened as he stared at her. She began to tremble under his piercing gaze. I had already told my grandfather everything I had gone through. He likely anticipated that my mother-in-law might show up uninvited, which is why he had been staying with us for a while. Of course, he also genuinely wanted to spend time with his great-grandchildren, but even he hadn't expected her to arrive so soon. "I didn't mean to bother you, Emily," she said in a gentler tone. "I just wanted to see the twins. Since you brought them here without telling me, don't you think it's unfair that I wasn't informed?" She claimed her visit was only to see the twins, not to cause trouble. But considering how she had pounded on the door and yelled through the intercom demanding her grandchildren, it was hard to believe that. "Is that so?" my grandfather replied. "But didn't you just demand that your granddaughter return your grandchildren? Since when did they become your property?" My mother-in-law couldn't ignore those words and snapped back. "What are you saying? Those children are part of our family, especially John, the heir. They're our grandchildren, not yours." While she cared for both twins, it was clear that John, being the male heir, held a more important place in her heart. "I understand you love the twins," my grandfather replied calmly. "But is it right to ignore their mother, who's still recovering from childbirth? Forcing your way into her home like this, don't you think that's completely inappropriate?" My mother-in-law looked shocked and turned pale again. "Wait, you're not going to tell my husband about this, are you? He told me not to come here. I can't let him find out." Despite her husband's clear warning not to come, she had defied him anyway. Now, she was worried that if he found out, divorce might be on the table. She pleaded with my grandfather to keep her visit a secret, but he wasn't swayed. "There's no reason to hide the truth, especially when someone is in the wrong," he said firmly. "I will inform your husband about your visit. And from now on, make sure to schedule a proper appointment before coming here." With those final words, my grandfather shut the front door. Normally, my mother-in-law would have continued pressing the intercom or knocking loudly. But in front of my grandfather, the chairman, she left without another word. Later, my grandfather summoned her husband to his office and explained everything. Even though he had told her not to go, she disobeyed him anyway. My father-in-law was clearly furious. "I deeply apologize for my wife's thoughtless actions," he said sincerely. "I promise this won't happen again." His apology was genuine, but my grandfather wasn't fooled by the deeper truth. "Yes, your wife's actions were out of line," he said. "But don't you bear some responsibility too? It seems you focus too much on short-term success and neglect those around you." He continued, "There's already growing concern about your leadership at the company. With these issues, I can't approve your promotion." In the end, my father-in-law's promotion was revoked. Blaming his wife for losing the opportunity, he went home, gave her a furious lecture, and slammed a stack of finalized divorce papers on the table before packing his bags and leaving. Up until then, my mother-in-law had relied completely on her husband's income. His departure meant she faced an uncertain and difficult financial future. She tried desperately to convince her husband to stay, but it was too late. The damage had already been done, and their relationship was beyond repair. "This is all because of that woman," she shouted. "She never should have married my dear James. I'll never forgive her. Never." Having lost everything, her marriage, her son, and her future, my mother-in-law was consumed with anger. She stormed over to my parents' home in a rage, pounded on the door, and screamed at the top of her lungs. "I've lost everything because of you. If you hadn't been here, none of this would have happened. Give me back my grandchildren. Give me back James." It was already past 9 p.m. when she began shouting and banging on the door. Her behavior was completely inappropriate, especially at that hour. That night, my husband made the difficult decision to call the police. She was taken to the station in a patrol car. Despite everything, my husband sincerely apologized to my parents and grandfather for the disturbance. But everyone knew it wasn't his fault. The sense of peace that followed her removal was like a heavy weight lifting off our shoulders. For the first time in a long while, our home felt calm again. I hoped this would finally mark the end of all the chaos, that we could now live quietly and focus on raising our children in peace. Though it was sad that things had escalated to such extremes, I felt relieved. Relieved that we could finally move forward, free from drama and emotional strain. Following the incident, my in-laws finalized their divorce. My mother-in-law moved back in with her elderly parents. Their home was located in a remote, rural area, similar to the countryside in Nebraska, where only a few buses ran each day. Without a driver's license, it was nearly impossible for her to visit us. Once so determined to have the grandchildren all to herself, my mother-in-law now struggled with her isolation. She repeatedly called and begged my husband for the chance to see the twins and make peace with me. But he couldn't forget her selfish actions. Eventually, he blocked her number and cut off all communication. Now distanced from both her son and grandchildren, my mother-in-law became withdrawn and emotionally drained. It appeared that even her own parents offered her little comfort. Having lost everything, she stayed mostly in her room, overcome with sorrow, quietly crying tears of regret each day.